Thank you for everyone for joining us in person and on Zoom. It is about 5:03 and we're beginning our Budget and Bites community budget meeting. So I'm Christine Alfaro, Director of Administrative Services. With me at the table here is Tony Oase Anderson, our Acting Budget Manager, and Jonathan Orozco, our Finance Manager. We're going to take you through a brief presentation, maybe not so brief, but we're going to take you through a presentation of some Budget 101 basics. We'll go through I just finished the introductions. I also do want to point out we do have our Vice Mayor, Kitty Moore, here in the audience with us. Thank you for joining us. I'm not quite sure with the camera placement how all of that works, but I did want to acknowledge you being in the room. In terms of some logistics, so let's go through the agenda for the evening. We do, for those of you in person, we do have some snacks in the back. We have restrooms. Men's restrooms are to my right. Ladies' restrooms are to my left. And I believe the sound still goes into the lobby, and it used to go into the restroom. I'm not sure if it still does there, in case you don't want to miss a minute of the action. We are going to start, so the very next slide will be a QR code for a survey. What we're hoping to get is from those folks online and in the room, if you don't want to take the survey, if you don't mind just writing down if there's anything specific, any financial information from the city that you'd be curious if you could build a report in OpenGov out of. Our goal is to show you how to build those reports, or also to test the limits of the system so you're aware of what you can and can't do within OpenGov. So if you don't mind providing a little bit of information in terms of what you might be hoping to build out of this software, we'd really appreciate it. As I mentioned, we'll go through a little bit of Budget 101, so not as robust as we did when we had our first Budget and Bites meeting in 2019, but just giving you enough of a flavor to help you be dangerous in OpenGov. And I should have probably started with OpenGov is the city's financial transparency portal. We have over 10 years worth of financial information on the website, which you can slice and dice and create different views on, and that's going to be the primary focus of this meeting today. We'll go over, aside from OpenGov, we do have other budget tools. We have our budget learning library with several different videos and a couple of other tools. We'll show you how to get there. And then we'll also be asking for feedback on maybe what are some other items you'd like to see on that budget library site. And then we'll go over the budget roadmap. This is just letting you know for the current fiscal year, and for the current fiscal year and next fiscal year, what is some reporting that's going to be coming. So if you'd like to join us for a proposed budget study session or final budget adoption or anything that happens in between and after when we get there, we're going to kind of hope to show you when you can expect that to be coming before you. Then we'll go through an OpenGov tutorial. This is the basics. How do you navigate what's on there? And then we'll go into a Q&A section. We want to make sure we capture everyone on Zoom, any questions you might have, before we end the Zoom portion and kind of take on the hands-on portion of building different reports as part of our budget community meeting. Then we'll do a closing survey. This is different than the beginning survey. The closing survey is really going to ask you, how did we do in terms of our presentation materials, the information we provided, and tell us about some things you might want to learn about in the future. So when we're putting together these budget meetings, we shoot in the dark based on what we're hearing folks talk about to try to put together a meeting that we think will resonate well with our community. So with that, we'll advance to the QR code. So if you just want to scan this code, we'll give everybody just a few minutes, or you can, as we go through, if you think of something, just add in what you might want us to look at in terms of how do I build this report or that report. Some examples of saved views we already have are things like, how much does the city receive in sales tax? What's the difference between a department's what they budgeted and what they actually spent? Right, so some of the, just to give you a flavor of some of the things you can do, but we're a creative bunch around here. So if you give us something challenging, we'll do our best to try to show you how you build almost any type of report. I do want to point out OpenGov has data up to the account level. So you won't see transactional data. We can't provide that, but we can give you information up to the account level. So with that, we'll just take a couple-minute break here, let folks kind of enter in some items, then we'll hop right back into the presentation, and I'll be handing the presentation over to Tony.
Okay, great. Thank you everyone for filling out our survey. That'll help us drive the rest of the interactive portion of our discussion today. At this time, we'd like to go ahead and review some commonly used terms, also known as City Budgeting 101. So as you know, you may or may not know that the city operates on a fiscal year basis, and that is from July 1st to June 30th. Revenues are funds received by the city from various sources. Appropriation is like your planned budget. It's how the city plans to allocate funds for spending, and expenditures are how money is actually spent. For fund balance, think of fund balance as a city's savings account. The balance grows and shrinks each year depending on actual revenues and expenditures. But we'll dive deeper into fund balance later on in our presentation. Carryovers are funds that are approved for a specific item or project, but they aren't spent in the current fiscal year. They can be carried over to the next year as long as they're used for the same purpose. An encumbrance works similar to a carryover, but it's specifically tied to a contract or purchase order for goods or services that haven't fully been paid yet. Next is the budget document here. The final budget document, it's a comprehensive book or length report that outlines the city's approved budget. So it provides us a snapshot in time, valuable information, but the numbers can become outdated fairly quickly. So the most updated budget document includes the final budget, carryovers, encumbrances, and also council approved adjustments. Next, we'll go ahead into discussing the city's account structure. It's organized into a hierarchical structure, often referred to as a general ledger account. It includes several layers. So the highest level is known as the fund. As you can see here, it's noted as 100 as the example. This determines how the money can be used, whether it's restricted or unrestricted. The next level is the department level. This groups activities into broad functional areas based on the main focus of work. Here, the example is City Council. The next level is the division. This breaks it down even further into smaller, more specific groups. The example here is 10 or City Council. The next layer is the program level. Here, the example is 100 or City Council. And here, this is another level that details service delivery, organizing specific services or initiatives. And lastly, you have the account level. This here tracks how money is actually being spent or received. So in our fund structure, you'll find this account structure both in the city's budget book and also in OpenGov, which we will be looking deeper into today. Now I will review our budget learning library. On this website here, you will find the city's various resources to help you learn more about the city's budget. You'll find interactive tools like the budget forecast, our resident tax calculator, and several educational videos, which are Budget 101 short clips. The link is here. It's www.cupertino.gov/budget. And again, this is a very useful page if you'd like to learn more and go into more detail about Budget 101 and other interactive resources here for you. With that, I'll hand it over to Christina.
We're going to continue a bit of our Budget 101 with how fund balance works. So as Tony mentioned earlier, fund balance is like the city's savings account. And so the city already has some money in their savings account. We call that beginning fund balance. And then what happens is it's a mathematical equation where we look at the beginning fund balance or savings. We add any additional revenue that the city has received through the end of a fiscal year. And then we take into account any expenses that have gone out. So money, where did we start? Money coming in, money going out. If our expenses are lower than the revenue we took in, then we're adding to fund balance, as in this example. So you see, we go from the light blue bars, and then our revenue is a little bit lower. Our expenditures are lower than our revenue. That results in 2 extra little cubes, and then those cubes would be added at the end to get to our ending fund balance. But all it is a math equation, and we always start. So generally, when we report on fund balance, for any of you that may watch our quarterly reports or our proposed or final budget reports, we generally report on total fund balance. As part of our quarterlies, we will give you a sense of where we think we're going to end and what are the shifts that are happening on a quarterly basis, any big items that are moving. So with that, we talked about a little bit of how fund balance is broken out. So I did tell you we present fund balance as a total in most cases. However, we generally do try to break it out a little further into different categories. And so some of these you may see and wonder, what are they? So we have a non-spendable category. This usually is something like a loan receivable. Someone owes us money, they haven't paid us, it's in a non-spendable form, right? I don't have the money, I cannot spend it. Then you have restricted. And this generally means restricted from somewhere outside of the city. So this is not a restriction that our own city council has put in on how these funds can be used. In our example with our photo, we have public access television. We call that PEG funds. Those can only be used to kind of put back into the equipment and the items that support the public access television. We also have some other restricted categories. We have in our current fund balance is our 115 trust for pension. It's a special restricted fund. Once we put the money in there, the IRS restricts how we can use those funds. So that restriction comes from the IRS, not from the council, thus it's restricted. Then we have committed. And in this one, it's the city council that can tell us how and when we can use these dollars. We have currently in our restricted, we have a reserve for future use in addition to our economic uncertainty fund. If staff wanted to tap into any of these dollars, we'd have to specifically go to council and ask for the permission to uncommit the funds and move them into the unassigned category, which I will talk about in just one second. So then the next thing we have is our assigned, and the bulk of the assigned fund is really more related to like encumbrances, so obligations to pay. We want to make sure we hold that money aside in our fund balance. And lastly is unrestricted. This means it can be used for any purpose that the council, so staff can come to the council asking to use this fund, council that would then give us the authority to do so or not. But it's not specifically earmarked for any purpose. And next, I just wanted to focus a little bit on governmental accounting, or what we like to call fund accounting. It's different than if you're in the private sector. So private sector, you're more focused on your profit and loss, right? But when it comes to fund accounting, we're more focused with what we have, how we receive the money, so what we can spend it on, and then how we spend it in providing services to the community, in maybe if we're building or fixing facilities or roads, offering different programs. That's more of the focus in fund accounting. So we have just a couple of photos here. We're looking at our roads. We're looking at the McClellan Ranch building as part of the preserve, and then different events that our Parks and Rec department puts on. So our focus is more on providing services. We still want to provide those services at the best rate we can, because if we can do that, we can provide more services to the community, but the emphasis isn't on profit and loss. Sorry, our sheriff's office showing up there as well. So a little bit about our budget process. We currently check in with the city council. So we will be bringing, so we generally start with our proposed budget. This is the proposed budget we bring to council for their review. Council provides feedback, asks for additional information. We then bring everything from that study session back to the final budget adoption. That then creates the point-in-time document that Tony was discussing earlier. So that incorporates what was in proposed and any changes council may have requested at the proposed budget or may make as part of the final budget adoption and hearing. Once the budget is adopted, we continue to monitor the budget and make amendments. And those normally come as part of our quarterly reports, but they can also come as an off-quarterly report to council as an agenda item. And that usually means that something needed to be funded prior to us bringing that report, and so departments will bring those individually. And so there's many opportunities for you to get involved. Our current proposed budget study session is set for May 15th. I'm getting that date right, May 15th. We're looking at adopting the budget in the first meeting in June. That's our goal, but we'll keep you posted if that changes. Quarterly reports, our first quarter report generally comes the second meeting in November. Our mid-year comes the first meeting in March, and our third quarter will be coming the second meeting in May, if anybody's interested in watching those council meetings and see us report on the status. Next is our budget, I have too many animations in this presentation, I apologize. Next is our budget roadmap. We started using this roadmap, I want to say was last year, and what we're trying to highlight here are all the different touch points and components of the budget that come before council. It also highlights to the community different areas where they may be able to come in and get involved. Everything that you see shaded out means that has already occurred. The yellow box with the red around it, that's where we are today. We're in the community budget meeting. The light blue turquoise, depending, I guess, on your screen, but the lighter blue turquoise colors relate to next fiscal year's budget, fiscal year 25-26. And then we added a couple of items, and we're starting to run out of space on our roadmap. And so we did want to call out that originally we were going to bring, there's a new law requiring us to report on our vacancies. That was going to come as part of the proposed budget. That will now be coming May 6th. So I actually put that in the wrong place. It will come before the proposed budget. And then we'll also be bringing our, we recently had someone look at our budget and give us feedback on format, and they gave us a draft implementation action plan, IAP. That is slated to come to council the first meeting in May as well. So sorry, I placed them kind of in the wrong spots, but we're running out of space, but we did want to tell you those are also coming up. And actually one of the reasons our focus is OpenGov in this meeting is part of one of the recommendations in the budget format review is for us to kind of switch the format in which we're doing the budget. And we thought it would be helpful to kind of inform the public and get them familiar with OpenGov. So there'll be much more communication as we get closer, but to really get kind of a feel for the software that we'll be using on a go-forward basis. So we're going to go to an OpenGov tutorial. I'm not sure if we're doing a short video. We might be doing this live, but cupertino.gov/OpenGov. This is our transparency portal. And again, as I mentioned earlier, this holds over 10 years of financial information at the account level for all our revenues and expenditures in the city. It is a really great tool. It's kind of a click and go once you have some of the basics down, which is why we wanted to talk to you a little bit about our fund structure, what that looks like. And so with that, Tony, if you don't mind trying to navigate to OpenGov, and we'll walk you through some of the places. This is also the tool we'll be using for the exercise portion of our presentation. And I'm going to navigate with my mouse, and I'm going to hope you can see me. I'm going to see if I can shrink this a little. Oh, sorry, thank you. Let me see if I can you make the view smaller, just so we see more of it on the screen. Oh, sorry. If not, we'll make it work. Okay, so when you're navigating, the first thing that it does is it will land you, this is our homepage. So important to know, I'm going to start kind of here, and then I'm going to move over to the left. This will tell you annual budget. Annual is final budget. So some of the language is set by OpenGov, so there's stuff that we can't really change, but annual is considered the final budget. Here it will show you what you're looking at. So we're looking at expenses, and we're looking specifically at the general fund. So when you land on a page or you go to a save view, this kind of navigates you to what you're looking at. Over to the left, we have either reports or stories. I'm going to focus on reports. And then we'll touch a little bit on stories. So on reports, you have the annual budget, so you can look at the adopted budget over the years, the final adopted. You can also look at the amended budget, which would include any carryovers, budget carryovers, carryover encumbrance, and any council-approved adjustments. You can also look at the actual, so not what did we think we were going to spend, but what did we actually spend. You can also look at budget versus actual, so what was the budget versus what did we actually either dollars brought in or dollars spent. You can look at this on a monthly basis. So if you're curious to see, I don't want to just see a singular year on its own. I want to see what's happening month over month. You would go here. For actuals, you do the same thing for budget versus actuals if you want to track spending on a monthly basis. We also have our staffing. So this is, click on it real quick. This shows us, hold on, historical staffing. So you can see by department how many positions a department has had. I'm not going to click on first quarter financial because that is actually a story. But you can see either our historical financial reports are also included here. These are interactive reports. Before we also have our business licenses. So as of 2/28/2025, this is a source that you can come in here if you wanted to search until it just gets started here. Right, you can break it down by different type, and then if you scroll down, there's generally the data set exists underneath it if you wanted to search that way as well. We have some fast facts. We have our capital, if you were just specific in what's happening in our CIP or our capital improvement program, you can click there, and then it kind of puts everything together for you. So you don't have to necessarily know which funds or projects are in CIP. You would just click here and be able to see which ones are on there.
I got a question.
Yes.
About what do you mean by transfer out?
So
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Transfers out are transfers moving from one fund, out of one fund and into another. We historically see that with our general fund having the biggest transfers. So I'll give you an example. There's a minimum amount of general fund dollars that must go toward our pavement. We call it our maintenance of effort. We transfer out historically between $5 and $3 million annually out of the general fund into our transportation fund to cover pavement maintenance. So transfers out generally transfer any money coming out of one fund, mostly the general fund, to cover expenses in another fund. So either if that's required by law or there isn't sufficient funding in that fund to cover the expenses. All right, so as we go through here, so the other thing that we do have, I'm not sure why it's loading, is we have saved views. So here, let me get to one that actually has several on here. So we also have saved views, so different views here where you can see if you're like, oh, I want to know how much general fund expenses by each department. So we've created several saved views that might help answer some of your financial questions that you have about the city. And then there's also filters, so you can kind of build a report on your own, which we're going to show you a little bit later in the presentation. But that's a quick overview. You can also, over to the right, you can select different chart types that you want. There's also a click and go. So if I wanted to click into employee compensation, I could. It breaks it down further by the account. So you can just click into each area and it'll kind of take you a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper. With that, I'm going to pause and see if there's either any questions. Maybe we'll take the Zoom questions first. And then if there's any other online questions before we maybe start to dig in a little bit. Nope. We have no questions on Zoom. And then for our Zoom participants, because it's a little hard to be interactive on Zoom, we'll be, hold on, something might have just come through. We'll be dropping you off of the call. But we're going to still work with everyone in person to kind of help you navigate through OpenGov and to build some of your own reports based on some of the information you sent us earlier. Otherwise, we can always just build things on the fly too. If you don't have anything specific you want to look at, we can try to give you some stuff to say, well, this might be interesting, and that might just get the creative juices flowing for some items you might want to look at. All right, with that, thank you to our Zoom participants for joining us for the more of the lecture portion of our meeting, and we're going to jump into our exercise portion of our meeting.